Hola, hola.
Ah, hola, muy bien. Very
You wanna,
good.
you wanna start this?
I am impressed, Hari Krishna. Very impressed. Multilingual you are.
Thank you so much. And ¿cómo está?
Pardon?
¿Cómo está?
Oh, estoy muy bien. Muchas gracias. ¿Y tú? ¿Qué tal?
Yes, I'm also fine. And I have just these three phrases just a few minutes before the session. So just to interact with you, just learn the Spanish, how beautiful the Spanish language is.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That was very impressive.
Yes. So we are so excited to interact with you. May I request you to say something about yourself?
Yes, of course. I'm very happy to. I don't know. I have um, a presentation. If you would like me to share my screen, I
Please,
did a few pictures that I put together.
you can do it, please.
Okay, let me try and find it. Now, is that okay? Can you see,
Yes, yes.
or
Now we can see.
you can? Okay, great. Okay, well, I just put a few slides together, really just to show you who I am and where I'm from. So as you can see, my name is Katrina McDonald, and McDonald is my family name. And it's a very typical name from the country that I come from. And I come from Scotland, which is north of England. It's in the United Kingdom. And I did all of my school in Scotland. I went to university in Scotland also. But then I moved to London and I worked in business for many years. But then I decided to leave business. But if I go to the next slide, if I can, let me see if this is
Please.
working. Okay, so typical things from my country of Scotland. We are very famous for our castles. We have lots of very old castles, and it gets very cold in winter. So we have lots of mountains with lots of snow in winter. And we have a very famous sport, rugby. It's one of my favorite sports. I'm not a football fan, as many people are with soccer, but rugby is one of my favorite sports. And my father used to take me to watch rugby matches when I was a young girl. And then here, the top right hand picture, you can see men wearing a skirt, but it's not a skirt. We call it a kilt. And the kilt is traditional dress. People nowadays, you won't see it every day on the street, but maybe for a wedding or a special occasion, then men will wear their kilt. And the material is called a tartan. And the tartans are different colors. And each family has their traditional pattern of or color when they have a kilt. So, for example, McDonald's, they have a particular material that has a lot of red in it. So that's their kilt design. And then this at the very bottom is called haggis. Now, haggis is a very famous food in Scotland. Lots of people think it's rather strange. It's made from the stomach of a sheep, and it has the stomach, that has the brain, it has bits of lung in it, but also lots of spices. So it's a little bit hot. I personally really like it. And again, it's not something we necessarily eat every day, but we eat on special occasions. We have in January, we have something called St. Andrew's Day. And we also have Burns Night. Robert Burns was a famous poet. I don't know if you guys know the song Auld Lang Syne. We sing it at New Year. So I'm not a very good singer, so forgive me. But should old acquaintance be forgot and never left behind? And I'm going to stop there. But that is a very famous song. And Robert Burns wrote that hundreds of years ago. And we celebrate his birth and we eat haggis on that day in January. So that's where I was. I was born in Scotland, went to school in Scotland, but these days I live in Spain, and I live in the north of the country. And here you can see some of the traditions of Spain, as you quite rightly started. We have hola, we have the Spanish language. Then we have things like this lady here dancing the flamenco, which is a very famous dance. Then we have something called paella, which a lot of people pronounce paella. It's Paella, paella. And that's a very famous dish with rice. And it has maybe fish in it, or it could be chicken. It depends what you like, what you prefer. And people make it, and they make it a big, big pan like this, maybe for up to 20 or 30 people. So it's a big, big pan of rice. Okay, so that's where I live now. I live in the very north, and I live in this small town. It's called Durango. And here you can actually see this picture was taken from my living room. So I live in an apartment, and this is the view that I have out of my apartment. So you can see I have a nice river, the town square, where lots of people gather. And actually this week is town fiesta. So fiesta means party or celebration. And we have a week-long celebration. So everybody comes together. It's the end of the summer. It's the end of the fiestas in all of the towns here. And there's lots of music in the street. There's theater in the street, singing. And tomorrow, everybody gets dressed up in fancy dress. So the streets will be full of people, all dressed up, a bit like Halloween, but usually groups of friends will get together and they'll all dress up as the same person. So it looks funny. You might pass, I don't know, 15 Elvis Presleys walking down the street, for example. So everybody will have fun tomorrow. And here I'm very lucky that I'm very close to mountains. So I can walk from my house, and within an hour, I'm in this kind of scenery. So beautiful hills, very green. Spain is sometimes famous for being very hot and very sunny, but I live in the north. And a bit like Scotland, it rains a lot in Scotland, and it rains quite a bit here. So it's a very green part of the country, which is wonderful. And then I can drive in the other direction, maybe 20, 30 minutes, and you go to the beach. So I have the best of both worlds. I have mountains to one side, and then I have ocean and the beach to the other. And this sport here, surfing, is very, very famous here. We actually have a beach called Mundaka, where we have a world championship of surfing every few years. And in the north of Spain, the area that I live in, it's called the Basque Country. And the Basque Country, the people here, as well as speaking Spanish, they speak a different language, which is called Euskera. And it's one of the oldest languages in the world. And even today, people are not sure of its origin. And it sounds very different. It does not sound like Spanish. It does not sound like English. Does not sound like French. It's very different. And this word that you can see here, esquericasco. Esquericasco is thank you in the Basque language. So it's very different. And here you can see, again, the scenery, the top picture here. This is a famous place for people to go and visit. And it was recently in a very famous television series also. And then we have sports that are very different also. So this is stone lifting. So men have to see how many times they can lift up this very heavy stone and then drop it and lift it and drop it. So we have different sports here too. And this also, the bottom picture, is during fiestas, and we have bulls, toros, the bulls running in the streets. So very early in the morning, you have to be careful if you're going to work because you might run into a bull. You have to be careful. And then here, the bottom right, this is a famous football club here, Athletic Club Bilbao. And people are very passionate about their club of Athletic Bilbao. Unlike other football teams, like maybe Barcelona or Madrid, they are allowed to buy players from different countries to play in their football teams. But Bilbao, only people that are born here in the north of Spain can play in Athletic Bilbao. So they're very proud of their team, indeed. So a little bit more about me. This is my cat. I have a pet cat. His name is Bobcat Marley. We call him Marley for short. And he often sits with me. He just left a minute ago. He just left. He often sits with me as I sit at my desk working and keeps me company. And I'm very lucky here in Basque Country to have a big family. So these girls are my nieces. They're not my kids, they're my nieces. And they have interesting names. The names here are quite different. This is Pauli and Ariane, Eleni, Mayelen, Udani, and Naya. So we were all together this weekend to start the celebration of the fiestas. We had about 20 people all together in our family for a lunch, which was a lot of fun. Last couple of pictures. As you know, I was a teacher. I was a teacher for over 20 years. I taught in China for 5 years. I taught in Eastern Europe, in Latvia also. I had some summers teaching at Oxford University. But then my last 10 years were here in the north of Spain. So I was teaching English to students aged between 11 years old and 18 years old. And this group here was one of my last group of students before I left. And they are now at university. This was their last year at school. And I was very lucky to be able to do what you do, Harry, and expose your students to students in different countries. That was one of my favorite things, was to have live Zoom or live Skype sessions with my students and students from a different country. I think that's a wonderful way to practice your English, to learn more English, as well as get to know people your own age around the world, and you can learn just how much you have in common, even if you're thousands of miles apart. So that was one of my favorite things. And then my last slide, on the right, you'll just see this is one of my favorite things to do. We have a van that we sleep in. We can drive, and we take our bicycles and we sleep overnight in the mountains. And then we can wake up in the morning to beautiful scenery like this and go for bike rides. This was actually in the French Alps. So the Alps, the mountain range, which is about maybe 8-hour drive from where we live. And then on the left-hand side, this one here, nowadays I work for an American non-profit organization. It's called Global Volunteers. And what we do is we send volunteers to many different parts of the world. We have community partners in America, but some in Africa, some in Peru, some in Cuba, some in Vietnam, some in Malaysia. And we send volunteers to go and help communities in need. That could be from teaching English, could be doing painting and repairing of school buildings. And we also have programs for medical professionals, so doctors and nurses. And this was, I went and I spent time in Tanzania, in Eastern Africa, when I was still a teacher. And I was able to take letters that my students in Spain wrote to these students in Tanzania, and we swapped letters. And that was one of the most rewarding experiences I had when I was still a teacher. So that's it. That's about me. I don't have anything else really to tell you, but hello, nice to meet.
My name is Gayatri Salvi. I am studying 7th class. Can I ask one question, ma'am?
Yes, of course.
You were born in Scotland. Could you please tell us about Scottish weather and food habits?
Yes. Yes, you're right. I was born in Scotland. I was born in the north of Scotland in the mountains. And the mountains during winter, very, very cold. Lots and lots of snow. When I was a young girl, maybe your age, there were days that we could not travel to school because it was so cold. But we're lucky that we have a saying in Scotland that you can experience 4 seasons in one day. So it might snow, it might rain, it might have wind, but then you'll have sunshine too. So it's very up and down. But if you're lucky, in the summer months, we can have very nice traveling. You might have something called a Scottish breakfast, and that is huge. You have sausages, you have bacon, you have eggs, you have beans, you have haggis, all on one plate. So that keeps you going for the whole day. And like England, something that we eat a lot of is fish and chips. We love fish and chips too. What's your favorite food?
Yes,
My
Gayatri.
favorite food is dal and chapatis.
Oh, very good.
Putti,
Do
we call
you make it? Or does your mother make it for you? Do you cook?
My mother made.
Ah, okay. Thank you. How are you today?
I'm fine, ma'am. Thank you. My name is
Good.
Nandikishore, a ninth grade student from Jetpete Salavaram. Here my question is, you have worked for more than 20 years as a teacher. What has been your incredible experience as a teacher so far?
Okay, good question. I very much enjoyed my 20 years being in teaching. And I think from the very beginning, I liked looking for new things to do with my students. So I was teaching them English as a foreign language. And instead of having a book where we would learn the grammar page, go to the next page, learn some grammar, go to the next page, then I was able to set up different activities where the students were playing games, but educational games. And then they were able to speak and use the language more. And I think that was one of my greatest enjoyments, was seeing my students improving their English and being able to speak more and more. And as your wonderful teacher does, being able to have them speak to different people around the world, I think is a wonderful experience.
Hello, ma'am. This is Krishna, 8th grader from ZPHS School, Ailavaram. I would like to ask a question, ma'am.
Yes, of course.
What is life like in Spain?
Life is, well, very good. I like my life here in Spain. I think one of the things that I like the most is there's a good balance between working hard, which we all have to do, but then enjoying your free time also. And spending time with family is also very important here. So, as I mentioned last weekend, we had myself, my partner, he is here, he is Spanish, he's from the Basque Country. So I get to spend time with him and his family. So last weekend, about 20 of us were together, and we ranged in age from 2 years old up to 80 years old. So being together, all of the generations together, is one of the things that I really enjoy about being here in Spain, as well as the food. I have to say, the Basque people in particular here in the north of Spain are very particular about their food. They always cook from fresh. They have particular places where we go and only the men are in the kitchen. The women are not allowed in the kitchen. Only the men have to do the cooking. They have to do all the washing up of all the dishes also. That it doesn't happen every day. That's like a special occasion. We'll go to, we call it a choco. In the local language, T, the letter T and the letter X together is very common in the Basque language, and it has a ch sound. So the choco is where we go to enjoy very good food, and the women can sit back and enjoy while the men do all the work. It's wonderful.
Thank you so
Hello, Jessica. Nice to see you.
Thank you, ma'am. My name is Jessica. I am a 9th grader from ZPHS School, Ailavaram. I would like to ask you a question. Can I ask, ma'am?
Yes, please do.
What is the typical food of Scottish people?
Okay, so we, as I mentioned before, we have fish and chips, which is very common. And when we have dinner in the evening, so our evening meal, it's usually some kind of meat and two vegetables. So we might have chicken with potatoes and carrots, for example. So that's very typical. And then at lunchtime, in the middle of the day, particularly if someone is working, then having some kind of soup is typical, or maybe a sandwich. So the middle of the day, it's not the biggest meal. The biggest meal that we have is for dinner, usually around 6 p.m. in the evening. And as I say, you, hello there.
How are you, ma'am?
I'm very well, thank you. Very happy and very happy to be talking to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Hello, ma'am. My name is Mamata, 8th grader from ZPHS School, Ailavaram. I would like to ask you a question, ma'am. Can I ask?
Yes, please do.
Here, my question is, could you please explain about your current job? How do you see this new opportunity?
Okay, yeah. So in fact, I just yesterday, I celebrated my 1 year in my new job. So I started on October the 16th, 1 year ago, and it's very different. So I'm now working at home. You can see this is my desk. This is where I sit every day. And I get to talk to people all over the world every day. So it's very exciting that I get to talk to interesting people. And what I do is I talk to people who are interested in doing voluntary work. And then I talk to them about the projects that we have, where they are, when we have them, and what is involved in the project, and then we find whatever program is suitable for them, whether they can only go in summer if they're a teacher, for example, or sometimes we have families go together. So again, during school holidays, people go. Or a lot of our people are retired individuals. So they are no longer working. So they have the time to go any time of the year. And I'm very proud to be doing the work that I'm doing now, because it's about helping others, you know, and working hand in hand with communities that need help. So not us going in saying, you need to do this. No, it's us going in saying, what do you need us to do to help you? So it's very enjoyable, and I'm very proud to be doing the work that I'm doing. Thank you for the question. That was great.
Thank you so much, Katrina, for answering. Of course, only so much. And
You're welcome.
yes, here are two quick questions from me. What kind of schools are so popular in Spain, public or private? Yes, what is the scenario going on in Spain?
Yes, I mean, we, like you, we have private schools and we have state schools. And then the school that I was in for 12 years, I was in the school that I was in, was a mixture between private and being governmentally funded also. So they did get some money from the local Basque government, but then parents did also pay. So they were a bit of a mixture. I would say state schools are probably more popular. Students here start learning English in primary school. So at 10 years old, they start having science in English, as well as having English classes. But then here there are also schools called ikastolas. Ikastola is a Basque word, and it's where the Basque language is used for teaching. So not the Spanish language. So mathematics, science, history, all of those subjects are taught in the Basque language. And then obviously they'll have English classes in English, Spanish in Spanish, etc. But that's something that's gaining ground here, because in the 70s, there was a man called Franco who was a dictator, and he banned the local language. So now there's a movement to bring the local language back and have it used more. So in the street here, you'll hear Basque and Spanish. You'll hear both languages. And also there are lots of little academies for after school, where I would say almost every child is sent to learn English. So they have English in school, but then they'll also have extra English classes too. And all students, I don't know if it's the same in India, but if a student wishes to go to university in Spain, they have to have a certain level in English. Even if they're going to study mathematics, they have to have a B1 level in English. So English here is very important too.
Thank you so much. So if one student fails to obtain the B1 level, so what will happen to the student? That means he remains in the same class, or maybe he won't take part in the any future examinations, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, the students usually, they have an option if they fail the first time around. So the university entrance exams happen in May. If a student fails in May, they have a chance in August to resit the exam. And then they could still enter university that year. However, if they fail again, they could repeat a year in school and do all of the subjects all over again, and hopefully pass second time around and then enter university. And then if they fail still after that, I mean, there are other options, you know, to do carpentry or to be an electrician, that kind of thing. Then you don't have to pass the same level of English for that kind of course.
Okay. So before I wind up this session, I have a last question. What is the lifespan in Spain, and what is the retirement age for the school teachers, especially public sector in Spain?
Okay. So usually around 65 years of age, people will retire. Some teachers look at retiring prior to that. We have a system where you can take a sabbatical. So for 3 years, you work, but you work for less of your salary. And then over those 3 years, you save some of your salary, and then you take 1 year free from work, but you still get some salary because you have not been paid all of your salary for 3 years. So I would say between 63 and 65 is the norm for teachers to retire. And then lifespan, people into the 80s, I would say is average for people here. Although my father-in-law, he's 87 this year. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you so much. And before I wind up the session, may I request you to give a message to my students?
Of course, yes. Well, I have to say that it's been my pleasure to have spent time with you. And I'm so happy that you are motivated to learn English. And it's a great way to do this, to be able to expand your knowledge, not just of English, but of the world. So keep up the good work. You're doing very good work, and keep being curious. Always ask questions.
Thank you.